The orbital feed stuttered for a moment, then died completely. Commander Reyna Voss stood still in the command center of Fort Artemis, her eyes locked on the now black holographic display above the war table. One by one, the icons representing Luna Base, Tranquility Relay, and the Pacific Defense Grid winked out. No explosions, no last messages, just nothing. A hush fell across the bunker. Dozens of operators, engineers, and soldiers stared at the same dark space, the silence a void none dared to fill. Then the alarms began to scream. Multiple bogies breaking Atmo, shouted Lieutenant Morris, his voice cracking under pressure. Estimate: over 1,000. No, 10,000 signatures. Dropships, biopods, atmospheric reapers, oh god. Reyna didn't flinch. She didn't have the luxury. Lock down sectors Bravo through Delta. Ground batteries to full charge. Scramble the iron talents. Get everyone up. The command center roared to life. Around her, personnel sprinted to their posts. Override keys clicked into ancient consoles, and the deep rumble of mobilized railguns echoed from deep below the fortress. It wouldn't be enough. They all knew it, but they moved anyway, because they were human. She turned to the sky feed. The clouds over New Shanghai had turned a lurid red, burning from the heat of atmospheric friction as a rain of Xyraxis drop pods pierced the sky like spear points from hell. Each dropship was 200 meters of organic metal and death, curling tendrils of black plasma tracing behind them. The sky was falling, not with debris, but with intent. The invasion had begun. Squad 5, on me. We're pushing to Skybridge 8. Sergeant D. Calverson's voice boomed through the crumbling remnants of Sector 7, even as his powered boots crunched over shattered glass and rebar. Around him, the iron talons, what was left of them, moved like wolves through smoke. Their black composite armor was scorched and blood-slicked, but they moved with the purpose of warriors who had nothing left to lose. His hut pinged as another biopod slammed into the city 3 clicks north. The impact rippled through the ground like a quake. Contact front, shouted Private Juno. Multiple six-limbed crawlers, flanking right. Deke barely had time to bring his rifle up before the Xyraxis were on them. 8 feet tall, chitin-clad, and impossibly fast, the swarm-born creatures scuttled across walls and ceilings like demons bred in a nightmare. The first one launched at him, its mandibles snapping. He dodged, spun, and drove the barrel of his rifle into its chest before unloading a 3-round plasma burst that lit its insides on fire. Another one tackled Corporal Jaeger, biting into his arm even as the man screamed and jammed a fragmentation grenade into the creature's throat. The detonation tore both apart. Deke growled and swung his rifle like a club, shattering the spine of another creature as it leapt at him. Blood, thick and violet, sprayed across his visor. Hold the line, he shouted, and they did. For now, back at Fort Artemis, Boss was already covered in ash and soot, her face streaked with grime as she stood before the main gate, rallying reinforcements from the northern bunkers. The world burned above them. Entire chunks of the orbital station rained down like vengeful stars. The main defense tower, once the pride of Earth's skyward bastion, exploded in the distance as 3 Xyraxis Reapers slammed into its base. Voss watched with narrowed eyes, silent. A young private stood trembling beside her, barely 19, clutching his rifle like a lifeline. "Ma'am, do we have a plan?" he asked, voice hollow. Voss didn't answer him right away. She simply looked up at the sky, the red streaks falling like God's own judgment, and then back to the private. "We fight," that was all. New Shanghai's core was gone. The city's famous skyline had been reduced to a forest of broken steel and flame. Deke's unit moved through collapsed buildings and corpse-littered streets, searching for survivors, ammo, anything. They were down to 3 members. His own armor was cracked, warning lights blinking. He found a Xyraxis trooper clawing into the rubble, trying to dig out what was probably a screaming child. Deke didn't think. He rushed forward, grabbed the alien by its carapace and slammed it into a jagged steel rod sticking from the wall. "You want to eat someone?" he hissed, spitting blood. "Eat me." He fired until the body stopped twitching. Behind him, Juno pulled the child free, barely breathing, body covered in ash. "She's alive," Juno murmured. Deke stared into the child's glassy eyes. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared. "Take her to the fallback line. Then get your ass back here." They moved, because that's what humans did. They moved, even when everything else told them to give up. Hours passed, maybe days. In Fort Artemis, the perimeter had collapsed. Entire wings of the mountain base were reduced to slag. The command center was burning. Voss limped through the wreckage, rifle in hand, rallying anyone who still breathed. She passed medics applying tourniquets to children, engineers shoving depleted energy cells into turrets, civilians carrying the dead out by hand. "Sable," she said, calling into the air. Her AI companion responded in a flat, toneless voice. Online. Orbital analysis. 42% planetary surface under Zyrax's control. Civilian casualty projections. 2.6 billion and rising. Probability of human survival. 11.7%. Good, Voss muttered. "Excuse me, Commander?" the AI asked. She reloaded her rifle and marched into the smoke. "Means we've still got a chance." As night fell, fire was the only light. The remaining Iron Talons regrouped with what was left of the Artemis defenders in a scorched plaza near the old Unity statue. Voss met Deke there, his armor shredded, one eye bloodied shut. "Thought you were dead," she said. "I was. Had better things to do." They shared a grim laugh. "We lost the fleet," she said. "The moon's gone. No one's coming." Deke spit into the dust. "Then we finish this here." Voss looked at him. "Even if this is the last night?" He straightened, blood and grime caking his jaw. "Especially if it is." They turned to face the horizon, where hundreds more Zyraxis dropships were lighting up the sky. The war was lost, but the battle had only just begun. The ash still hung in the air like a blanket of ghosts when Commander Reyna Voss returned to Fort Artemis. Her armor, once gleaming silver, was now scorched black, caked in soot and dried blood. As she stepped into the reinforced underground war room, all eyes turned to her. "Status," she said flatly. Lieutenant Morris, nursing a bandaged shoulder, stepped forward. "We've lost contact with Western Command. Geneva, gone. Paris, gone. The Nile Bastion is surrounded, and Red Talon Battalion's remnants have just begun retreating out of New Shanghai." "Retreat." Voss's voice sharpened. "We don't retreat. Not anymore." No one answered. There was no point. They were being slaughtered, but something burned behind her eyes, not desperation, not even rage. It was something colder, harder. "Resolve. Bring up the deep zone schematics," she ordered. The holographic table hummed, displaying the topographical layout of what used to be Russia's central core. After the third collapse, the region was sealed off, too irradiated, too lawless. Rumors said warlords and black market tech dealers carved it into tribal enclaves. More importantly, it was where the last major pre-collapse weapons caches were hidden. "If we're going to hold Earth, we need more than grit," Voss said. "We need firepower. The deep zone has it, or had it. I want a team in there by nightfall." "Commander," Patel warned, "that zone isn't just enemy territory. It's a tomb. No satellites, no comms, no guarantees. Exactly why we need to go in person." She turned to Deke, still bruised from the Shanghai incursion. "You up for a walk through hell?" He cracked a grin. "My favorite kind of stroll." The deep zone. 9 hours later. Snow fell in thick, choking silence. There was no birdsong here, no wind, just the crunch of boots over frozen bones. Deke led a strike team of 15 through the skeletal remains of Kaliningrad's outskirts, now a ruin of ice-blasted metal towers and collapsed bunkers. His visor pinged with radiation warnings every 5 seconds. "Movement, 9 o'clock, muttered Ruiz, scanning the ruins with a thermal scope. Deke signaled for silence. The squad fanned out through the ruins, moving low and slow. Shadows danced in the snow, too fast, too erratic to be natural. Then they saw them. Not Zyraxis. Humans. Sort of. They wore scavenged armor, faces covered in scrap tech respirators. Their weapons were cobbled together rail guns and energy cannons. These were zone-born, descendants of those who had refused to flee during the collapse. "Warlords, raiders, survivors. Identify yourselves," Deke called, raising his hands but keeping a finger on his trigger. One of the zone-born stepped forward. Her voice was modulated through a throat piece. "You're from the mountain. Artemis. We thought you were all dead." "Close enough," Deke said. "We're looking for a weapons vault. Designation: Fortress Scythe." The woman's eyes narrowed behind her cracked visor. "You want Scythe? Then you'd better be ready to fight for it." The bugs found it first. Fortress Scythe, 3 clicks north. The fortress was a half-submerged monolith of obsidian steel, jutting out of the tundra like the spine of a buried god. Zyraxis biocannons coiled around it, having taken root like fungal growth. The creatures had corrupted its core. Whatever was inside was now protected by swarms of hive drones. Voss arrived by VTOL just as the first firefight began. She hit the snow with a combat roll and came up firing, cutting down 2 drones with precision Gauss bursts. Behind her, Zoneborn warriors roared, charging with blood-painted axes and magnetic hammers. The joint assault was chaos incarnate. Snow churned with blood and ichor. Humans moved in tight fire teams, pinning down enemy positions while others charged with recklessness only humanity could muster. Deke led the charge into the vault entrance, gunning down 3 sentries before shoulder-slamming the inner blast door. Inside, they found it. Rows of dormant mechs, powered-down plasma cannons, and prototype energy blades that had never seen use. "Jackpot," he whispered. Behind him, Voss entered, looking at the vault like a general entering heaven. "Start loading. We bring all of it back." "But what about the reactor?" asked one of the techs. "It's unstable. The core's been compromised. We can't power the whole arsenal." "We don't need the whole arsenal," Voss said. "Just enough to remind them what humans do when we're cornered." Fort Artemis. 2 days later, the weapons from Fortress Scythe changed everything. Mechs, modified with scavenged zone-borne tech, now stomped across the battlefield. Plasma mortars, too unstable for safe use in most environments, were retooled by human engineers desperate enough to make anything work. The next assault on the Zyraxis landing zone was no longer a defense, it was an offense. EDF units struck across Asia and Eastern Europe, carving bloody paths through alien strongholds. Swarm units that had once shredded human forces were now burned alive by fusion blades and scatterplasma rifles. But it wasn't just the weapons, it was the rage. The Zoneborn joined the EDF ranks. Old enemies stood side by side with former traitors. Engineers, civilians, even prisoners were given exosuits and told to make the bastards pay. No more surrender, no more negotiations. Humanity had stopped running, and it was the Zyraxis who would retreat next. The sky over the Eurasian warfront churned with storm and smoke. Where once clouds brought rain, now they carried plasma ash. From the scorched plains of Kazakhstan to the broken ridges of the Urals, the earth burned beneath the shadow of the Zyraxis fleet. But far above, hidden in the shattered husk of a defunct orbital satellite grid, humanity's last forbidden weapon waited for its moment. The Tartarus Array, a weapon too powerful, too dangerous, even for a species that had already poisoned its own planet twice. Designed to deflect or destroy rogue asteroids, the Tartarus Array was an orbital solar lens cannon that had never fired in war. Decommissioned, buried under legal red tape, and left to rot in the void. Until now, Commander Voss stood aboard the Aegis Dawn, a retrofitted carrier that barely held orbit. Her face was gaunt, eyes ringed with fatigue, but they still burned with cold purpose. Around her, engineers and soldiers worked like ants in chaos, prepping the final stage of activation. Sable's voice filtered through the bridge. "Power cells at 73%. Solar convergence initiating. Firing range locked. Window closes in 12 minutes. Target?" Voss asked. "Zyraxis World Crucible Vessel. Designation: Hive Spine. Mass: 4.7 megatons. Primary command structure." "Good," Voss muttered. "Let's take out their goddamn brain." The Hive Spine had anchored itself above the Urals, laying waste to everything within 500 kilometers. It was part city, part breeding nest, part living supercarrier, and entirely lethal. EDF ground forces had tried to crack it for weeks, but the thing refused to fall. Now they had one shot, one window, and one weapon. Down on the surface, Deke Halverson led an EDF hammer team into the Hive Spine's defensive perimeter. Their job? Distracted. Make the swarm focus all its attention downward while the array came alive above. "Hold formation," he barked, voice cutting through the thunder of battle. They were surrounded by scorched meadows and jagged rock, crawling with Zyraxis drones. Gunfire flared from defensive trenches as the soldiers pushed forward. Artillery slammed the ground. Black ichor sprayed from ruptured carapaces. And still they came. Mortar teams suppressed the ridge. Deke roared. "We need their eyes on us, not the sky." Sergeant Miles popped smoke grenades and launched EMP bursts at nearby signal towers. Above them, the Hive Spine began to shift, massive sensory tentacles retracting, reorienting. It was working. They had its attention. Back in orbit, the Tartarus Array unfolded like an awakening titan. A mile-wide solar lens focused light into a single point of cataclysmic energy. The satellites hummed with barely contained power. Sable's avatar flickered on the primary screen, ready to fire. Recommend immediate evacuation of strike teams. Voss didn't blink. They knew what they signed up for. She stared at the live feed from Deke's body cam. His armor splattered in alien gore, his helmet cracked, but his smile feral. Give him hell, Reyna, he growled. Burn the F*********************************************** ING sky. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The heavens split open. A shaft of pure solar death lanced from orbit, punching through the atmosphere like the wrath of angry gods. It hit the hive spine dead center. There was no explosion, not at first, just a blinding white lance. Then an eerie, unnatural stillness. Then came the detonation. The impact vaporized everything within a 30-kilometer radius. Mountains liquefied. The hive spine shrieked as its core was pierced, a death wail that echoed in every soldier's skull. A thermal shockwave flattened forests, glass stone, and ignited the sky itself. Deke and his team were caught on the edge. They ran. Some made it. Most didn't, but they succeeded. The hive spine was gone. 3 hours later, Voss stood at a crater's edge, wind whipping her coat, eyes red from smoke and loss. What was once the heart of the swarm's Earth offensive was now a charred hole. Patel approached quietly. We counted 12,000 dead, mostly Zyraxis, a few of ours. She didn't speak. The array is destroyed, he added. Burned itself out. Couldn't handle the power draw. We won't get another shot. Did we get the crucible core? He nodded. Yeah, we killed the brain. She closed her eyes. One less monster to haunt this planet. And then, behind her, from a field of ash and twisted metal, Deke emerged, limping, burnt, helmet gone. You owe me a drink, he rasped. Voss grinned. You're getting a damn bar. Above them, for the first time in months, the clouds parted, and sunlight, unfiltered and pure, touched the earth. The earth was still smoldering. In the aftermath of the hive spine's obliteration, the Eurasian front quieted for the first time in weeks. What had once been a howling storm of claws and fire was now a graveyard of ash and twisted metal. The crater left by the Tartarus array was a wound in the world, a blackened scar that stretched for miles. But in war, silence never lasted. Commander Reyna Voss knew it. She stood with boots planted in the scorched soil, her coat fluttering in the wind that still smelled of ozone and blood. Behind her, battered EDF convoys rolled across the plains, scavenging, evacuating, reloading. Sergeant Deke Halverson stood beside her, arms crossed over a cracked chestplate. Hell of a light show, he muttered, gazing at the empty sky where the hive spine once hovered. But they'll be back, smarter, meaner. Voss nodded grimly. Which is why we're going to be ready. They turned toward the makeshift base rising from the bones of an abandoned mining complex, Outpost Eierhold. It was built in hours, welded from scrap, powered by stolen Zyraxis reactors, and armed with a fusion of Earth tech and alien weapons. Engineers called it a miracle. Soldiers called it a coffin with walls. Voss called it necessary. 2 kilometers south, civilian evac site Echo 9. Corporal Mira Yao escorted a convoy of refugees through the desolate roads beneath the Ural ridgelines. The evac site was a battered zone, a mix of broken shelters, med tents, and shivering families who had seen the worst of the war. Children without parents, elderly without homes, survivors who had nothing left but their breath. They were the reason humanity fought. Her squad patrolled the perimeter as another dropship descended, its hull scorched from atmospheric burns. Supplies, food, medkits, water, the bare minimum. A ragged cheer went up as crates were offloaded. Then came the sound, a low-frequency rumble, too deep for tanks, too regular for earthquakes. Yao's instincts screamed. Everyone underground. Now, she wasn't fast enough. From the tree lean beyond the cliffs, a swarm of Zyraxis burrow beasts erupted from beneath the earth. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to erase. The camp exploded into chaos. EDF soldiers opened fire, cutting down the first wave. Screaming echoed as civilians scattered. Yao dragged a boy behind a wrecked vehicle just as a plasma bolt melted through the fuselage. Echo 9 is under attack, she shouted into comms. We need backup. Repeat. We need. The signal cut. Eierhold Command Center. Moments later. Contact lost with Echo 9, Patel reported. Final transmission indicates multiple hostiles. Ground-based swarm. Voss didn't hesitate. Send Halverson. Take the blackguard. Full gear. Go fast, hit hard. Deke was already grabbing his railgun. Always wanted to fight in a canyon. Echo 9. 30 minutes later. Smoke filled the sky. Fires blazed through the shelter ruins. Half the camp was leveled. The other half fought like cornered wolves. Deke's Blagger dropship came in hot. The ramp dropped before it touched down, and armored warriors stormed out into hell. You spotted them and pointed toward the collapsed eastern trench. Civvies are pinned there. Burrowers dug in, too deep for rockets. Deke nodded and fired a signal flare. 3 mechs dropped in from orbit, exo-framed titans retrofitted with plasma lances and shockwave boots. The ground quaked as they landed. One raised its cannon and vaporized a nest of burrowers in a single pulse. The EDF counterattack surged. Deke smashed his way through the swarm, blade and rifle in tandem, roaring like a war god. Around him, the tide turned. The burrow beasts faltered, broke, and ran. When it was over, the camp still burned, but it stood. The survivors were alive. Outpost Ironhold. Nightfall. Back at base, Voss stood on the central balcony, watching fires dot the horizon like the last embers of a dying world. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter. Civilians were relocated. Ammo was counted by the bullet. Deke limped up beside her, bruised and bleeding. "You win?" she asked. He grinned, teeth red. "Always." She handed him a flask. "Whiskey, the last real bottle on Earth. To the ones who didn't run," she said. He drank, and far away, under the surface of the Pacific Trench, something stirred, something older than the Xyraxis, something waking. Because war on Earth was never over. It just changed shape. Outpost Ironhold stood defiant on the smoldering Eurasian front, a steel spine driven into the scarred land. But below the surface, something stirred. Humanity's war with the Xyraxis had not just cracked continents and shattered skies. It had unearthed ancient echoes buried deep beneath the earth. Commander Reyna Voss leaned over a reinforced table in the Ironhold war room. Holograms displayed seismic tremors spreading out from beneath the Pacific Trench, forming strange geometric patterns, too symmetrical, too consistent to be natural. "Talk to me," she said. Sable's AI avatar flickered to life. "We are detecting energy pulses resonating from below the ocean floor. Frequency, non-terrestrial. Sources, artificial." Lieutenant Patel crossed his arms. "Xyraxis tech?" Sable shook her head. "No. Older. Pre-Xyraxis. Possibly pre-human." The room went silent. Then Voss nodded once. "We sent a team." 2 days later, Mariana Trench. Depth 10,800 meters. The Abyss Lance, a deep-sea research vessel turned mobile war lab, descended through black water like a falling blade. Pressures outside could crush a tank, but inside, lights flickered and oxygen hissed in the recycled air. Deke Halverson adjusted the seals on his reinforced dive armor. "Remind me again why I'm swimming into the planet's heart with death machines waiting up top?" Voss's voice came through his helmet. "Because if that thing down there wakes up, we're all dead. And I trust you more than I trust a drone." The dive team, 4 EDF soldiers and 2 scientists, descended into the alien dark. The trench floor was a jagged alien cathedral, sharp spires of obsidian rising from the deep. Lights glinted off metal that had no rust, no age. The team approached a monolithic structure, half buried in silt and glowing with a faint blue pulse. "Structure is massive," said Dr. Amelia Kahn. "Readings indicate it's not just a ruin. It's alive." Then it opened. Panels slid back. Lights flared. The sea boiled with released pressure. And a massive door, circular, etched with indecipherable runes, unfolded. Inside was a chamber of silence and awe. At its heart pulsed a core of light, a sphere suspended in magnetic fields, humming with impossible energy. "This isn't just a weapon," Amelia breathed. "It's a seed, a terraforming seed, from an ancient species. Can it help us?" Deke asked. "Maybe, but it'll make us a target for everything that's ever wanted to control this planet." Suddenly, alarms blared. "Contact!" shouted one of the soldiers. From the darkness outside the chamber, shapes emerged, Xyraxis drones, somehow already here, already aware. The fight was vicious. Gunfire ricocheted through the alien chamber. Deke carved through a dozen foes, protecting the scientists. One of the drones struck the energy core, and it flared. A pulse shot outward. Across the world, ancient structures long buried ignited with light. Something had awakened. Ironhold. Hours later, Voss stood at the command balcony, watching the seismic feeds go mad. Patterns rippled across the globe. Old lines, ley lines, some said, flared with power. Patel stepped beside her. What did they bring back? Voss didn't answer for a long time. Then, hope, or the end. It was too quiet. After the Harbinger's descent, the world held its breath. not because the fighting had stopped, but because something worse had arrived. A silence so profound, so unnatural, it spread dread faster than any swarm. Commander Reyna Voss stood in Ironhold's Central Command, surrounded by hushed operators and flickering monitors. Outside, ash fell like snow, coating ruined vehicles and shattered steel. "They're not attacking," Patel whispered, eyes scanning global feeds. "Not a single strike in the last 12 hours. They're waiting," Voss replied. "They want us to see it coming." The Harbinger, low Earth orbit. The alien godship loomed above the Earth like a funeral star, dozens of kilometers long. Its shape defied comprehension. Organic lattices fused with monolithic plating. Bioconduits pulsed like veins. Its mere presence distorted gravity and disrupted communications. Inside, the creature at its core, unnamed, unknowable, sifted through the genetic code of every species Earth had ever hosted. It wasn't a leader. It wasn't even alive in the human sense. It was a judgment, and soon, it would deliver sentence. Deep underground. Pillar Core 3, Atacama Basin. Dr. Amelia Kahn adjusted the phase harmonics of the seed's resonant field. Her team worked in a blur, linking global pillars to a central consciousness, a proto-network formed by the awakening intelligence hidden within the terraforming artifact. She had begun to suspect the seed wasn't just a device, it was an ark, a memory of a lost civilization, one that once fought the Xyraxis. "What happens if we push the sync to maximum?" one of her scientists asked. Amelia hesitated. "We give it the keys to our world, and pray it doesn't lock us out." They pushed. Ironhold, command deck. Hours later, the air inside the command bunker was stale, dense with tension. Voss paced before the tactical holograms. There were no new troop movements, no orbital strikes, no air skirmishes. Only waiting. Deke entered, his armor still smeared with black ichor. "Just walk the perimeter. Our boys are getting jumpy. Too much quiet. Not enough dead bugs." "They're coiling," Voss said, "like a serpent before the lunge. Then we cut off the damn head before it strikes." She gave him a long look. "You think we can breach the Harbinger?" "Don't know, but I do know this. If we don't try, there won't be anything left to defend." Final War Council, below Ironhold. Humanity's last surviving generals, scientists, and civilian leaders gathered in the seed chamber. Around them, the terraforming core hummed with growing intensity. "We propose an insertion strike," said Patel. "We use an experimental stealth cruiser, cloaked with reverse-engineered Xyraxis biotech. Infiltrate the Harbinger. Destroy the core." "Suicide," someone muttered. Voss stepped forward. "Yes, but suicide isn't failure. Doing nothing is failure." She paused. "We send a team. Small. Elite. We call it Operation Ragnarok." No one objected. They had run out of alternatives. Global calm, the human front. As the mission was prepped across Earth, humans prepared, not for battle, but for the end. In Brazil, soldiers danced around bonfires. In Berlin, survivors carved names of the dead into the walls of bombed churches. In Delhi, orphans painted stars on rubble. Humanity did not weep. It remembered and waited. The team: Deke Halverson, field commander; Dr. Amelia Kahn, seed technician; Sable, AI interface, now housed in a mobile combat shell; two elite blackguard troopers. Their ship, the Valkyrie, an obsidian black spear of desperation built for one thing: penetrating the Harbinger and killing whatever god slept within. They launched at dusk. Final scene, just before insertion. As the Valkyrie rocketed past shattered satellites and broken stars, Deke looked back through the viewport at Earth. It was beautiful, battered, bruised, scorched, but still alive. He whispered, "See you soon." Then they vanished into the Harbinger's shadow. The Valkyrie slipped through the void, a sleek black dagger aimed at the heart of the Harbinger. Inside its armored hull, for souls carried the fate of humanity: Commander Deke Halverson, Dr. Amelia Kahn, the AI Sable integrated into a combat shell, and two elite blackguard troopers trained for one mission: breach the alien godship and destroy its core. As the ship breached the Harbinger's bioshield, the crew felt the oppressive weight of an ancient intelligence watching them. Hallways pulsated with living metal, organic machinery fused with eerie alien tech. The air thrummed with power and malice. Every step was a battle. Deke led the squad through endless corridors of writhing flesh and cold metal. Sensors screamed warnings of biodefense systems activating. Blackguard troopers moved like shadows, silently cutting down hostile sentinels before they could alert the whole ship. Emilia monitored the seed's resonance, trying to interface with the alien core systems. But the Harbinger was no mindless machine. It fought back with psychic waves that frayed nerves and distorted reality. Crew members were haunted by visions of extinction and despair, but they pressed on, hardened by humanity's stubborn will. Sable hacked through ancient firewalls and corrupted data streams, carving a path to the core's chamber. The AI's voice echoed inside the ship's comms, warning structural integrity compromised. Core defenses escalating. In the final chamber, the team found the heart of the godship, a swirling nexus of dark energy and alien consciousness. Emilia deployed the seed's power, initiating a chain reaction designed to sever the core's link to the rest of the ship. Explosions rocked the chamber. The godship writhed in pain, its psychic screams trying to tear the Valkyrie apart. Deke and the Blaggards fought desperately, buying time for Emilia and Sable to complete the overload. As the core destabilized, the ship began collapsing in on itself. The Valkyrie raced back through the crumbling corridors, flames licking at their heels. Against all odds, they escaped the dying giant. Above Earth, the Harbinger shattered, its remnants burning in the atmosphere. The psychic pall lifted. Humanity's resolve shone brighter than ever. They had gambled everything and won. The shattered remnants of the Harbinger fell like meteor showers through Earth's upper atmosphere, burning bright against the dawn sky. For the first time in months, silence reigned, a heavy, hopeful silence. Commander Reyna Voss stood atop the rebuilt walls of Outpost Ironhold, her eyes tracing the horizon where the first rays of sunlight broke through the thick haze. The battle for Earth was over, but the scars remained. Cities lay in ruins, ecosystems fractured, and millions lost. Yet, humanity endured, scarred, battered, but unbroken. Below her, survivors moved through makeshift settlements, rebuilding homes from rubble and planting seeds in blackened soil. Children laughed for the first time in ages, their voices a balm to war-weary hearts. In the command center, Deke Halverson limped in, armor battered, but spirit intact. He met Voss's gaze with a tired, defiant smile. "We did it. They came for our world, but we held the line." Voss nodded, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "We survived because we never gave up, because we fought not just for ourselves, but for everyone who couldn't fight." Dr. Emilia Khan activated the seed one last time, sending waves of terraforming energy rippling through the planet's wounds. Cracked Earth healed, forests grew, and skies cleared. It was a slow process, but the promise of renewal was undeniable. Sable, now a guardian AI dedicated to humanity's rebirth, broadcasted messages of hope and unity across global networks. "We are the sum of every struggle, every sacrifice. Together, we build a future worthy of our name." As nations began to reconnect, old divisions softened. Leaders met on neutral ground, forging alliances stronger than ever before. Humanity's shared ordeal had forged a new purpose, survival and stewardship of a fragile home. In the final scene, Voss, Deke, Emilia, and Sable stood on a hill overlooking a world slowly healing beneath a rising sun. "Humanity is stubborn," Voss said quietly. Deke grinned. "Unbreakable." Emilia smiled softly. "Relentless." Sable's voice was calm and sure. "Unstoppable." And as the dawn painted the sky, Earth breathed a new life, a testament to a species that refused to be extinguished.